Actually, they're a lot as far as putting the ball in play, like the Brewers. I just thought tonight Blake just didn't have good fastball command. He was working deeper counts. When he had count leverage, you really couldn't put him away because they were putting the ball in play. And, there were just a couple bad walks in there. But you got to give those guys credit. They certainly fought.
The Los Angeles Dodgers just dropped the most unexpected bombshell of the offseason, and it's sending shockwaves through the entire baseball world. Fresh off their second consecutive World Series championship, the team that supposedly has everything figured out is now reportedly considering the unthinkable, trading away one of their most valuable pitchers, Tyler Glasnow, in a move that has left fans, analysts, and insiders absolutely stunned. This isn't just some wild rumor floating around on social media. This is coming from legitimate ESPN sources.
Those Brewers to these Toronto Blue Jays.
It's different game plan, different team. As far as like the record going into it goes, I don't think that's like a huge thing. Just kind of go in and take the game as like its own single thing and just game plan, come out, execute, and hopefully pitch well.
Complete with quotes from anonymous Major League Baseball executives who are already sizing up the Dodgers ace as trade bait. The question everyone is asking right now is simple but profound. Have the Dodgers completely lost their minds, or is this actually a genius move that will cement their dynasty for years to come? Let's start with the facts, because this story has layers that go deeper than anyone initially realized. Matthew Croy, a respected Boston Red Sox writer, was the first to bring this explosive report to light. But the real credibility came when Jesse Rogers of ESPN confirmed that multiple sources within Major League Baseball front offices are whispering about Glasnow's availability. One anonymous MLB executive, someone with inside knowledge of how teams are operating this offseason, told ESPN something that sent everyone scrambling to their keyboards. The executive suggested that Tyler Glasnow, the 6'8" flame-throwing right-hander who was absolutely crucial to the Dodgers' postseason success, could actually be on the trading block. The reasoning: the Dodgers have so much pitching depth with Shohei Ohtani returning to full-time pitching duties, Yoshinobu Yamamoto continuing to develop, Blake Snell anchoring the rotation, rookie sensation Roki Sasaki potentially moving into a starting role permanently, and prospect Emmett Sheehan waiting in the wings, that they could afford to use Glasnow as a premium trade chip to address other roster needs. Think about that for a second. The Dodgers' rotation is so stacked, so absurdly talented, that they can actually consider trading away a pitcher who posted a 3.19 earned run average last season, a pitcher who struck out batters at an elite rate, a pitcher who can start games or close them out when needed. Remember that save Glasnow recorded during the postseason? That wasn't some desperate move by a team with limited options. That was the Dodgers flexing their incredible depth and versatility. They had so many weapons at their disposal that they could deploy their number 4 starter in a high-leverage relief situation and trust him completely. That kind of flexibility is what championship teams are built on. So why on earth would they consider trading that away? The anonymous executive who spoke to ESPN provided some insight into the thinking. According to this source, the Dodgers could roll out a starting rotation featuring Ohtani, Yamamoto, Snell, Sasaki, and Sheehan, creating one of the most dominant pitching staffs in baseball history. Then they could take Glasnow, a pitcher with immense value on the trade market, and flip him for assets that fill other holes on the roster. Maybe they need a second baseman. Perhaps they want to upgrade their outfield depth. There's always the possibility they want to add a shutdown closer or bolster their bullpen further. Whatever the need, Glasnow represents a premium asset that could fetch an enormous return. On paper, the logic makes sense. You leverage your surplus to address your weaknesses. It's basic roster construction strategy. But here's where things get complicated and controversial. Tyler Glasnow isn't just any pitcher. He's not some aging veteran on the decline or a middling arm that teams can take or leave. This is a 28-year-old talent. Actually, he just turned 31, but looks and pitches like someone in his prime with elite stuff and the kind of strikeout numbers that make general managers salivate. His stats over the past 3 seasons tell the story. A sub 3.50 earned run average across multiple years. a strikeout rate that consistently ranks among the best in baseball. When you pull up his Savant page, it's a sea of red and orange, with percentile rankings in the 75th percentile or higher across nearly every meaningful category. His fastball velocity, his whiff rate, his strikeout percentage, his hard hit rate allowed, all of it screams elite pitcher. This isn't someone you casually toss into trade discussions. This is someone you build around. Build. And that's exactly what the Dodgers have been doing. When they acquired Glasnow, they knew they were getting someone special. They also knew they were getting someone with an injury history. Glasnow has never been the picture of durability. He's dealt with various arm issues throughout his career, and staying healthy for a full season has always been his biggest challenge. But when he's on the mound, he's as good as anyone in baseball. Last season, he made 18 starts for the Dodgers in the regular season, providing exactly what they needed: quality innings, dominant performances, and the kind of electric stuff that changes games. Then in the postseason, when the lights were brightest and the pressure was highest, Glasnow stepped up. Not just as a starter, but as a versatile weapon they could deploy however they needed. That save he recorded wasn't just a statistical footnote. It was a statement about his value to the team. So let's talk money, because that's always part of these discussions. Glasnow is owed $32.5 million per year over the next 2 seasons, with a club option for 2028. That's not cheap, but it's also not outrageous for a pitcher of his caliber. Some people are suggesting the Dodgers want to shed that salary to create more financial flexibility. But that argument doesn't hold much water when you consider this is a team that just handed out massive contracts to multiple players and shows no signs of being concerned about payroll. This is the Los Angeles Dodgers we're talking about, a franchise that operates in one of the biggest markets in sports, with revenue streams that dwarf most other teams. They offered Glasnow that contract knowing exactly what they were getting into. They're not suddenly going to balk at paying him what they already agreed to pay him. If the Dodgers trade Glasnow, it won't be because they can't afford him. It will be because they believe they can get more value by trading him than by keeping him. But here's the central question that should be keeping Dodgers fans up at night. What kind of return would actually make this trade worth it? Think about what you'd need to get back for Tyler Glasnow. You're trading away a frontline starter with elite stuff, playoff experience, and multiple years of team control. The return would need to be substantial. We're talking about a package that might include a proven everyday player at a position of need, maybe an elite closer who can lock down the 9th inning for years, or perhaps multiple high-end prospects who can contribute immediately. Anything less than that, and the Dodgers would be selling low on an asset they should be maximizing. And that's where this gets really interesting, because we have to consider the context of the Dodgers' current roster construction. Brandon Gomes, the team's general manager, has been doing media rounds discussing the team's plans for next season. He's been asked repeatedly about the rotation and how they plan to manage all these talented arms. One of the questions that keeps coming up is whether the Dodgers will run a 6-man rotation. Gomez has said it's certainly on the table, but that it depends on how things shake out. That's GM speak for we're considering all our options and we'll make the decision that gives us the best chance to win. A 6-man rotation would allow the Dodgers to keep everyone fresh, reduce the workload on pitchers who have injury histories, and maximize the health and effectiveness of their staff over the long grind of a 162-game season. But it also means fewer starts for each individual pitcher and potentially some guys getting cold with extra days off between outings. Here's where Shohei Ohtani factors into everything. The two-way superstar is expected to return to a normal pitching schedule next season. After focusing primarily on hitting during his first year with the Dodgers, Ohtani being back on the mound full-time changes the entire calculus. Suddenly the Dodgers don't just have a great rotation, they have arguably the deepest starting pitching staff in baseball history. Ohtani, Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, Sasaki, and potentially Sheehan. That's 6 legitimate starting pitchers, any of whom could be an ace or number 2 starter on most other teams. The embarrassment of riches is almost unfair, but it also creates a legitimate roster management challenge. How do you keep everyone happy? How do you give enough work to pitchers who need regular innings to stay sharp? How do you balance the needs of the rotation with the reality that only 5 guys can start in a typical week? Then there's Roki Sasaki, the Japanese phenom who made waves last season. The original plan might have been to use Sasaki in a hybrid role, potentially as a high-leverage reliever or as someone who could spot start when needed. But after seeing what he can do, after watching him dominate in limited action, the Dodgers might be rethinking that approach. Sasaki has the stuff to be a frontline starter. His fastball is explosive, his secondaries are sharp, and he has the kind of composure on the mound that belies his age and experience. Do you really want to waste that talent in a bullpen role? Or do you maximize his value by making him a full-time starter and letting him develop into the ace he's capable of becoming? If the answer is the latter, then suddenly your rotation glut becomes even more pronounced. Emmett Sheehan is another factor. The young right-hander showed flashes of brilliance and has the kind of upside that makes teams drool. He's not ready to be a number one starter, but he could absolutely slot into the back end of a rotation and provide quality innings. In a normal organization, Sheehan would be competing for a rotation spot and probably winning it. With the Dodgers, he might be odd man out simply because there are too many talented pitchers ahead of him. That's a nice problem to have until you realize you're potentially wasting a valuable asset by leaving him in the minors or limiting his major league opportunities. So let's circle back to the central question. Should the Dodgers trade Tyler Glasnow? On one hand, the depth argument makes sense. If you have more starting pitchers than you can realistically use, and if one of those pitchers could fetch a haul on the trade market that addresses clear roster needs, then why not explore it? The Dodgers have shown they're not sentimental about roster construction. They'll make the tough decisions if they believe it makes the team better. On the other hand, trading Glasnow feels like a massive risk. You're giving up a known commodity, a pitcher who has proven he can perform at the highest level in the most pressure-packed situations. What you get back in return is always uncertain. Draft picks don't always pan out. Prospects can flame out. Even proven players can struggle when they change teams. You know what you have with Glasnow. You don't know what you'll get in return until it actually happens. There's also the durability question. Yes, Glasnow has an injury history, but he's also been relatively healthy over the past 2 seasons with the Dodgers. Maybe the team's training staff and medical infrastructure have figured out how to manage his workload and keep him on the field. If that's the case, then his injury concerns might be overblown at this point. On the flip side, if the Dodgers are worried that his arm could blow out at any moment, then trading him now while his value is at its peak makes sense. Get maximum return before the injury risk becomes an actual injury. Let's also consider the bigger picture. The Dodgers are clearly in win-now mode. They're not rebuilding or retooling. They're going for a three-peat, trying to cement a dynasty before potential changes to baseball's economic structure, like a salary cap, could limit their ability to spend freely. In that context, every decision should be evaluated through the lens of, does this make us more likely to win the World Series next year? Trading Glasnow for pieces that fill other needs could absolutely make them better if the return is right, but it could also backfire spectacularly if they give up too much pitching depth and then suffer injuries to other starters. Andrew Friedman, the Dodgers' president of baseball operations, has built his reputation on making smart, calculated moves that maximize value. He's not going to trade Glasnow just for the sake of making a trade. If this happens, it will be because Friedman and his front office brain trust have identified a deal that they believe makes the team significantly better. They'll have run the numbers, evaluated the options, and concluded that the risk is worth the reward. But even the smartest front offices make mistakes. Even the best executives miscalculate. And trading a pitcher of Glasnow's caliber is exactly the kind of high-stakes move that can define a franchise for years. There's also the question of what other teams are willing to offer. If the Dodgers do put Glasnow on the market, the bidding should be fierce. Contending teams looking for that final piece to put them over the top would line up to make offers. Teams with surplus position players or elite relievers would be tripping over themselves to acquire a pitcher like Glasnow. The Dodgers would have leverage in those negotiations because Glasnow is exactly the kind of player every team wants. But leverage only matters if you use it correctly. If the Dodgers set their asking price too high, they might not get any takers. If they set it too low, they'll get killed by fans and media for selling low on a valuable asset. And let's talk about the fan reaction because this is already causing heated debate. Dodgers fans are split. Some see the logic in maximizing assets and filling roster holes. Others are horrified at the idea of trading away a key contributor to back-to-back championships. Social media is ablaze with arguments, hypothetical trade packages, and passionate defenses of both sides. This is the kind of move that will be debated for years, especially if it doesn't work out the way the front office hopes. Brandon Gomes has been careful in his public comments not to commit to anything. He's kept all options on the table, which is smart from a negotiating standpoint. You don't want to telegraph your plans to other teams or limit your flexibility by making definitive statements you might need to walk back later. But his comments about the six-man rotation and how things will shake out suggest the Dodgers are still figuring things out themselves. They're weighing the pros and cons, running scenarios, and trying to determine the best path forward. The fact that they're even considering a Glasnow trade shows how unique their situation is. Most teams would kill to have Tyler Glasnow as their number 4 starter. The Dodgers are contemplating trading him because they have too much pitching. It's an absurd luxury that only a handful of teams in baseball history have ever had. But luxury doesn't win championships, or smart decisions do, and the Dodgers will need to be very smart if they decide to pull the trigger on this. They'll need to identify the right trade partner, extract maximum value, and ensure the pieces they get back actually address their needs. They'll need to manage the optics and keep their fan base on board, and they'll need to be right about their evaluation of the pitchers they're keeping versus the one they're trading away. If Glasnow goes somewhere else and becomes a Cy Young contender, while one of the Dodgers' other starters struggles with injuries or ineffectiveness, this decision will haunt them. The timing of this report is also significant. We're in the early stages of the offseason when teams are exploring all possibilities and testing the market. Just because the Dodgers are listening to offers doesn't mean a trade is imminent or even likely. It might just be due diligence, seeing what's out there and what kind of return they could get if they decided to move forward. But the fact that an MLB executive felt confident enough to tell ESPN that Glasnow could be available suggests there's more smoke here than just idle speculation. Front offices talk to each other. Information leaks. When multiple sources are pointing in the same direction, there's usually some fire beneath the smoke. So where does this leave us? The Los Angeles Dodgers, fresh off their second straight World Series title, are reportedly considering trading Tyler Glasnow, one of the key pitchers who helped them get there. The logic is sound. They have incredible pitching depth, and Glasnow could fetch a massive return that addresses other roster needs. But the risk is enormous. Trading a frontline starter is never easy, and if this backfires, it could derail their championship aspirations. The next few weeks and months will be crucial. We'll see if the Dodgers actually pull the trigger or if this was just exploratory conversations that ultimately lead nowhere. Either way, this is the kind of high-drama storyline that makes the baseball offseason must-watch entertainment. One thing is certain. The baseball world will be watching every move the Dodgers make, every press conference, every trade rumor, every cryptic comment from Andrew Friedman or Brandon Gomes will be dissected and analyzed. Tyler Glasnow's name will be linked to every team that needs pitching. Mock trades will flood social media. Hot take artists will argue passionately on both sides. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, the Dodgers will make a decision that could define their franchise for the next several years. Will they keep their embarrassment of pitching riches and figure out how to manage it? Or will they make the bold move and trade Glasnow for pieces that push them even closer to dynasty status? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, this offseason just got a whole lot more interesting. So what do you think? Are the Dodgers making a genius move by potentially trading Tyler Glasnow, or are they about to make a catastrophic mistake that they'll regret for years? This is the kind of decision that will be debated in sports bars, on talk radio, and across social media for months. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are you team trade Glasnow and maximize assets, or are you team keep the depth and run it back with this incredible rotation? There's no right answer yet because we don't know how this story ends, but that's what makes it so compelling. The Dodgers are playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, and we're all just watching to see if their bold strategy pays off or blows up in spectacular fashion. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the biggest Dodgers story of the offseason, smash that like button and let the algorithm know this is the kind of content you want to see. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates as this story develops, because trust me, there will be updates. This is just the beginning. Comment below with your trade packages, your hot takes, and your predictions for how this all plays out. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when we break more news. The baseball offseason is heating up, and you're not going to want to miss a single minute of the chaos. Until next time, this has been your inside look at the Tyler Glasnow trade rumors that are rocking the baseball world. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.